Here at Intuit, the Center for Intuitive and Outsider Art, we have these artworks by Mr. Imagination in our exhibition, Trauma and Loss, Reflection and Hope. We are going to explore these pieces further and the connections they make. Gregory Warmack, who called himself Mr. Imagination, is an outsider artist who created many different artworks out of bottle caps and other used or found materials. Let's take a look at this sculpture of the head first. The first thing we may notice is the shape. It may remind us of a mountain because it is wide at the bottom and it comes to a peak at the top. There are also deep carvings that make up the shapes and lines of the eyes, nose, lips, hair, and head covering. There aren't any pupils or eyebrows. The lips are downturned, but it does not tell us if this face looks happy, sad, or angry. Because it is a sculpture, we can move around it and we can see it from different angles. From the side, we can see how the nose curves down. The cheeks also look more rounded. On the other side, Mr. Imagination carves his name. This piece may remind you of your own face. Take a good look at yourself and imagine how you would sculpt your face. We all have different shapes, lines, colors, and textures too. Feel the shapes of your eyebrow, your nose, and your cheeks. Think about what they feel like. Looking at ourselves gives us an idea of how an artist would make something like this. Above this sculpture, we have castings of the artist's hands. The artist made this by using plaster. Plaster is a pasty substance that looks like clay. It hardens when it dries and is also used to coat, protect, and decorate walls. It is also interesting how the artist painted them gold and showed the bottom of his hands. We can see all of the wrinkles and textures of his fingers and palms. Mr. Imagination would have visions of himself dressed in magnificent clothing, much like a king. Gold can remind us of royalty, of kings and queens, people who are in charge of everyone and have a lot of gold or money. Mr. Imagination probably appreciated his hands very much because they helped him make his artwork, and it was a way for him to work and make money. It is important to know that Mr. Imagination grew up in one of the poorest neighborhoods in Chicago, so he made money in many different ways. He spent time painting rocks, carving tree bark, and making jewelry from thrown-out objects. He sold walking canes and clothing, and he did other work too, such as cutting hair, repairing things, and cleaning tables. So, Mr. Imagination used materials in his artwork that he also used for his jobs, and other objects he would find along the way. He liked that these items were free and could be made into many different things. He also used paintbrushes and pieces of wood for his other sculptures. Now, look at your hands. Notice their size. They may be large or small. You may have long fingers or short ones, and they may feel rough or very smooth. Place your hand on a sheet of paper and outline them. See the different curves and angles your hands make. Hands help us make things, but they also help us feel closer to people we care about. They can help us feel safe when we hold someone's hand or have a hug. What was fascinating about Mr. Imagination's work is that he wanted to help people feel happy and to help them feel healed. Healing is when you start feeling better after something happens. You might have been hurt or injured somewhere on your body, felt sad, or just had bad feelings. But when you heal, you start to feel better and more like yourself. This is what Mr. Imagination wants the person looking at his work to feel like. What we learn from Mr. Imagination and his work is that we can always take what we find and use what we have to make it into something new and beautiful. Many people would think the items he uses for his work is garbage, or it's too old or boring, but he gives them a new life. He makes them work in a different way to say something important. As we have learned, art is something that can help us feel safe and healed, and it can also be a part of who we are or our identity. I hope you enjoyed this time together, and thank you.